Bruchim Abayim. Welcome everyone. Everyone knows that when the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, he wrote the famous letter to his brother-in-law Reb Gershom Kittiver, and he said that on Rosh Hashanah he made Aliyas Neshama, and he found the Heichel of Mashiach, and he asked, Amos Aikosi Mar. He said, Master, when are you coming? And he said, the Mashiach answered, when your well springs go outside. It's a paraphrasing from the book of Proverbs, from Sefer Mishnah. And of course, the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov went to many different mayonos, and one of the most famous and one of the most choshev is that of his great-grandson, Rabbeinu Nachman ben Fega me Breslov Hafotzah Kol Yisrael Amen. And I want to share with you a rather long and convoluted story, but it brought me to tears because of the culmination that came to it tonight. And this is why I'm asking that you should help partner with the Breslov Research Institute in doing this work of Hafotzah, of Hafotzah, of bringing about that the mayonos, that the well springs of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh and of his Talmidim, particularly his great-grandson, Rabbeinu Nachman ben Fega Zchus, should come into the world even more. And the roshim that it makes, and particularly that BRI, that the Breslov Research Institute has accomplished. So a number of years ago, I saw online that there was a Breslover Kehila in Lakewood, New Jersey, that was making Hafotzah. They had some of the old copies of books from BRI and other books in English, Breslover Sfarim, including a almost complete set of the English translation of Likutei Moharan, which is many volumes. Actually, it's available. The text is available for free on Sefaria.org, but it's nice to have Sfarim, and more than that, it's nice to have Sfarim. Some places they might not have access to internet, and I'll tell you about such a place. So I work full-time as the head chaplain in a state prison in northeastern Pennsylvania, about a half hour from Scranton. And I supervise a team of chaplains of all different religions, and I'm responsible for the spiritual life of about 1,200 men of all different religions. Now, in the past, here and there were either people who were not so much, I tried to give it to them, or people interested in becoming Gerim, which if you study Reb Nachman's Sfarim, and Reb Nosson talks about this also in Likutei Halachos, that there's a tremendous focus in Breslov on Gerim. So I remember this one fellow, he told me about how he lived in this one small town where all there was a conservative shul, and he was walking to shul, and he saw the rabbi driving and told him, "Oh, you don't have to walk." This was unfortunately what he had there, and I gave him to borrow from the library the Likutei Moharan, and he told me, he said, this fellow is Puerto Rican. He said, "Rabbi, do you study this?" I said, "Here and there." He's like, "You know what I learned from this? I learned God is God." That's what he told me, Puerto Rican fellow. So, happened that one of the Galachim who works for me, a Protestant pastor, he retired, and we needed to fill the void of his retirement. And so, even though I'm of course not a Christian, and one of our other chaplains, he's Eastern Orthodox Christian. He's not Protestant. But we filled the void of the missing Bible studies that I started to teach Chumash from the beginning, and he started to teach from their books, the other Galach. And this was geared, really, I have a Jewish service that's separate, but this Bible study was geared mainly for Christians, but some who identify as Jewish also attend. But one fellow who comes, Christian, is a Chinese young man, very intelligent young man from China, and a very spiritual young man, which usually a lot of the Chinese people are not so spiritual. And he's very interested in the Bible. And, in my Chumash shir, I try to keep it just to translating the words, but I can't help it to say over a Rashi here and there. And he started to get fascinated by that. He said, where can I find these Jewish homilies that you're talking about? And I said, you want to look at the library we have. We don't have that many books. I think we had the Medrash Says, let him borrow that. And then he saw the Likutei Moharan. He said, what's this? I said, you might be interested in this. You're an intelligent person and you're a spiritual person. I gave it to him that he should, and he was hooked on it, just like the other fellow was. I tried giving to Yidden. I wasn't as matzliach, but this Chinese fellow. But why am I telling? Because people ask me, you can't, you're not allowed to do that, this and that. The Breslov vierte Welt, Herzi. So this fellow, he was holding on to everywhere he goes. He had the Likutei Moharan. I explained to him, don't take it in the bathroom, but everywhere he went, he had with him Likutei Moharan. So, and then he finished one volume, because there's many volumes, the English. He asked for another volume. So tonight, he came to, I oversee groups that are run on Zoom and so forth. It's a group called the Prison Fellowship. It was founded by Chuck Colburn, who worked for President Nixon, spent some time in jail, and became a Christian. I actually met him once when I was a Rav in Virginia. There was an event that was at the Jefferson Hotel with PBS, and different speakers, and he was there. I spoke to him for a few minutes. Passed away shortly after that. So this group, it's on Zoom, and so it's on Zoom, someone has to babysit it. So I'm sitting there, and I sit and I learn Gemara, Safari. I can go on the computer, learn Gemara, learn Mishnayos, while the guys are talking to these people. There's three people on Zoom, a husband and wife on one Zoom, and then another lady, another Zoom, and they talk to them, whatever, give them chizik, whatever it is. And I'm there, and the guard is there. This Chinese young man who's actually leaving soon and going back to China, and he's going to bring those Mayanos, Mir Tashem, back to China also, so we don't have to go there. He's going to be mild and sites there in China. So, although he did in the war in Shanghai. Anyway, so this young Chinese man, he had with him a letter he got in the mail from the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Yael Eckstein, she's the Mamala Malcolm for her father, Rabbi Chiel Eckstein. It was interesting, yes, I was talking to one of my Rebbeim, and then someone called him and brought up Rabbi Chiel Eckstein, and so he said, I knew Yechiel, we were friends, this Rebbe of mine. So that's like a bit of the story also, somewhat related. So people are familiar, there's commercials all the time for IFCJ. So they give money to in Eretz Yisrael and in Ukraine, Holocaust survivors. It's a well-known charity that mostly is that Christians who want to get the bracha of that's the way they do it. even though it's a shaila, al pi halacha, whether it's mutter or not, and a lot of the gedolim are against it. They say it's a chil Hashem, one of shach, but sof kol sof, it's zoyizis. There is such a thing, and it's a very large organization that does a lot of good things. So this Chinese Christian, he had this in his hand. He read the story, and he said he was so angry to hear, how could it be an old Holocaust survivor, an old woman in Ukraine, she has no money, and he said the following. He said, we, the Christian community in the prison, we have a choice. Christmas Day, we sit down, we'll have a nice meal. They give them roast beef, and if we want, we can spend a little bit extra money and have our own food, meaning the roast beef, that's given to them, they don't have to pay for that. But if they want something else, harashus biyadam, they're allowed to do such a thing. And he said last year for Easter, it cost almost $25, $23 to get a little bit of food, some chicken nuggets and a gyro or something. It was funny because they took it from a Muslim vendor for Easter. Interesting. And they said, what can we do? We could spend $25 on ourselves to eat some extra food for Christmas, or we can take our $25 and feed this Holocaust survivor in Ukraine for a month. So this young Chinese man, he said, I am going to give my $25 not to myself. I'm going to give it to the International Fellowship to feed the Holocaust survivor. And why am I doing this? Because I read in a Jewish book, Likutei Moharan, that fasting has to be connected to charity. And so therefore, it's not enough just not to eat, but the food that you would spend, the money you would spend on food, which is what they taught us in yeshiva, it's not Rabbi Nachman's chiddush. But he talks about the inner depth behind this concept, which is his chiddush, of course. And he said, this is what I have to do, because it's not enough to just fast, I have to give tzedakah also. This guy said like that. And if that is not, and who was he inspired by? By Rabbeinu Nachman ben Fegem and Breslov and Reb Nosson Zal, who facilitated that, and by the Breslov Research Institute, who translated Rabbeinu's Sforim into English and made it available l'kshiafutzu ma'inasecha chutza. And I was crying when this young Chinese man, when he was saying this, that this is what he wants to do with a very meager amount of money. They make something like 19 cents an hour. So he's giving away 2 days of work that he could have fed his own belly with, and he only has the opportunity twice a year to do that. And he said, I'd rather give it away because I was inspired by what I read in this Jewish book. Of course, it comes from the Navi Yeshayahu, from Isaiah 58. So, with all that being said, when you are giving to BRI, you're accomplishing that l'kshiafutzu ma'inasecha chutza. And not only that, but the koyach that you have a shutfus with and a shlichus with, that of partnering with BRI, it's accomplishing to inspire people to give tzedakah, people who, that $25 for a prison inmate, that's like $2,500 for us to give, or $250 at least. But really, it's a lot more. It's really like $2,500. They're making 19 cents an hour working. I don't even know. I guess he's in school. I don't know how much he's making. And that's what he's choosing to do with his money. It's incredible. There's no words for that. And so when you give to BRI, that's the type of investment you're putting into. Of Hafotzah and Emir Hashem bringing Mashiach ben David from the Heichel of Mashiach. With all of the strange things, all these things that are really connected halacha, and sof kol sof, the level of hashgacha pratis of the Rebbeinu Shalom vierte Welt. Even Rabbi Nachman says, if you want to do tshuva, you have to be a baki b'halacha. It's Indian with that. And I know the Rebbeinu, he said all of his teachings have to be understood within the realm of halacha. But with that being said, it's also within the realm of halacha, because there's a brightkeit also. But that's the point, is that when you give, you're making an investment to encourage other people to give as well. And that is what it means, that's when we're going to see a Masai Kasimar. A Masai Kasimar. All right. Love you all. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to help out my campaign with BRI, please help us. I made a goal of $2,000. I have, hundreds of friends on Facebook and Twitter, and if each of my YouTube subscribers gave 50 cents, we could get there. But I know many of you could give a lot more. Consider giving $5, $10, $50, $100, whatever it is, to help this Hafotzah. It's so important, and it's mamish changing the world, and mamish saving lives. Beruchnius and begashmius. All right, love you. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. We'll see you later. How do I turn off this one? There we go.